9 years ago, my husband decided that becoming a father was too much of a burden. He didn't even have the courtesy to look me in the eye or leave a note on the fridge. He sent me a single, cold 6-sentence text message while I was 6 months pregnant. You heard that right, a text. It was a digital execution of our life together. And 9 years later, after I had painstakingly rebuilt a life he brutally shattered, transforming my ruin into a fortress, I looked up from my laptop and saw his face looking back at me through the glass door of my beautiful, safe home. He was back, and the terror I felt was quickly replaced by a furious, protective rage. This is the story of how a ghost from my past tried to crawl back into the life he abandoned, only to find the walls I built, physical and emotional, were far stronger than he ever anticipated. Let's rewind to the beginning, because you need to understand the slow, suffocating depth of the betrayal that led to that final, decisive text. Jason and I had a relationship that was comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. We met in college, settled into the easy rhythm of shared Netflix queues and expensive takeout, and drifted into marriage less out of passionate commitment, and more because it was the expected next step for two people in their mid-20s. He was charming, socially adept, always the life of the party, but at home, he was pathologically non-confrontational. I always confused his relentless aversion to conflict, his ability to glide past any difficult conversation, with being easygoing. I was utterly wrong. It was just the defining trait of a professional coward, expertly avoiding any situation that required maturity, sacrifice, or genuine effort. When things got difficult, he didn't fight, he simply disappeared. The difficulties started subtly, then escalated rapidly, after the pregnancy test came back positive. It was unplanned, a surprise that shook our comfortable bubble, but we were both in our late 20s and financially stable enough, or so I thought. I remember his reaction. It wasn't joy, it was a profound, visible slump. A tight, forced smile. "Okay, Clara. We'll figure it out. It's a lot, but we're a team," he'd said, but though we always felt like an obligatory placeholder, something he was reading from a script. Simultaneously, we closed on an old, slightly rundown fixer-upper, a quintessential starter home, in a nice suburban neighborhood, complete with peeling paint, a chronically leaky roof, and a massive, wild backyard that was more untamed jungle than usable garden. That house, that terrible, beautiful, demanding house, was supposed to be the symbol of our commitment, the foundation of our future family. Instead, it became the exact anchor he needed to escape. The financial stress was immediate and intense. Jason, whose job in mediocre sales relied more on charisma than actual effort, started spending more time networking, and less time contributing to the mounting repair costs. Any conversation about budgets, the baby's medical needs, or the urgent roof repair would make his face shut down, replaced by a hollow, distant look. I started feeling like I wasn't preparing for one baby, but two. The one in my belly, and the fully grown, responsibility-dodging child I was married to. The financial arguments became silent, freezing standoffs, which was always Jason's preferred method of control. I was 6 months along, feeling awkward, hormonal, and immensely anxious, trying desperately to focus on nesting despite the pervasive feeling of dread. We had spent a Friday evening painting the future nursery a soft, peaceful sage green, one of the last normal things we did. I remember the smell of fresh paint mixing with the smell of my own exhaustion, and the metallic tang of fear. I was utterly exhausted from working my graphic design job all day, and then coming home to manually scrape old, stubborn wallpaper off the bathroom walls, because Jason claimed his chronic backache prevented him from doing any heavy lifting. That evening, he told me he had a last-minute business trip, with his sales team, a mandatory weekend retreat 2 hours north. It was the kind of cliché lie you hear in bad movies. But I was too tired and pregnant to fight. He gave me a quick, distracted, almost clinical kiss on the forehead, packed a ridiculously small duffel bag that couldn't have held more than 2 shirts, and promised to call me from the road. I remember standing on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching his beat-up sedan pull away until the taillights disappeared entirely. The dull ache of loneliness I felt was not just pregnancy fatigue. It was the intuition of abandonment. The text came Saturday evening. I was curled up on the couch, watching a bad rom-com. finally allowing myself a moment of vulnerable peace, eating a bowl of melted ice cream. My phone vibrated with a single notification. I opened it, expecting a standard, stuck in meetings update or a picture of a bland hotel buffet. What I got was a text so short, so brutally final. It instantly flash froze the blood in my veins, replacing the warmth in my body with a crystalline panic. It read, "I'm not cut out for this. I'm gone. I don't want the life we planned. Don't look for me. You'll be better off without me. Sorry." 6 sentences. 6 strokes of a digital pen. No explanation, no chance to argue, plead, or scream. Just 6 lines of digital abandonment, terminating a marriage, a future, and erasing my identity as a wife, replacing it with the terrifying reality of being a single mother-to-be, drowning in a half-renovated house. The first few weeks were a devastating blur of physical sickness, panic attacks, and sheer, paralyzing terror. The doctor was furious. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks, causing a severe scare that landed me in the ER. The physical stress compounded the emotional trauma to the point where I felt the house was haunted. Every squeak of the floorboards was a phantom footstep. Every shadow was him, lurking. I called every friend, every relative, and eventually the police. The police, kind but professional, filed a missing persons report, but made it chillingly clear he was legally an adult who had likely just chosen to run. I was left with a massive mortgage, a half-painted nursery, and a stack of overdue bills with his name on them. The financial ruin was almost as crippling as the emotional one. I had to face the reality of losing the house, our one stability. To hold on to it, I made the painful, humiliating decision to sell every valuable thing he left behind. His expensive guitars, his vintage watch collection, his high-end gaming console. It was a painful, public purge, but the act of converting his past life into money for my future was a necessary step in survival. I filed for divorce on the grounds of abandonment. It was finalized 3 agonizing months later, just 2 weeks before I gave birth. The judge, clearly moved by the callousness of the situation, didn't even require his presence, noting the mountain of evidence showing his complete desertion. My son, Owen, was born into a world defined not by loss, but by my stubborn resilience. His existence gave me a fierce, protective focus that made me unstoppable. I didn't just survive. I clawed my way into a stable, successful life, piece by painful piece. That old fixer-upper became my project, my therapist, and eventually my fortress. I learned how to patch drywall, rewire leaky fixtures, and install security systems using endless YouTube tutorials. I transformed my career, leaving the constraints of an in-house job for freelance graphic design, giving me the flexibility to be Owen's sole caregiver. My house became a symbol of my strength and independence, a physical manifestation of a life built without him. I spent a whole summer, with Owen safely in a playpen nearby, meticulously building a 6-foot privacy fence around the entire backyard, embedding every post deep in concrete, and checking the hinges daily. That backyard, with its perfect manicured lawn, the brightly colored wooden swing set, and the raised vegetable beds, was my ultimate pride. It was my sacred space, the safe, beautiful, stable life I built for Owen, completely free of Jason's weakness and instability. Life became genuinely good. Owen, now 9, is a bright, empathetic, and slightly nerdy kid who loves space and coding. He doesn't have a father, but he has David, my partner of 4 years. David is everything Jason wasn't. Reliable, kind, emotionally available, and absolutely devoted to Owen, treating him like his own son without ever trying to erase his biological ghost. David was on a mandatory business trip that week, which, ironically, was the exact lie Jason had used 9 years earlier, but David had sent me a picture from the conference dinner, called me twice, and texted me his flight information for his return. The difference was night and day, and it showed me just how low my standards had been with Jason. The return wasn't sudden. It was preceded by small, unsettling whispers. Throughout the week, I had that strange, prickling feeling of being watched, that low-grade anxiety you get when a sense of security is challenged. I dismissed it, blaming the stress of a major client deadline. I heard unexplained crunching sounds on the gravel path late one evening, and I wrote it off as a stray cat or perhaps a raccoon. But the feeling persisted. The physical sensation of the hair standing up on the back of my neck, the compulsive urge to check the door locks twice before bed. The night he showed up, I was working late. It was a humid Tuesday evening in late spring. Owen was soundly asleep upstairs, tucked into his space-themed sheets. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop humming its familiar tune. The large glass sliding door that opens to the backyard just a few feet away. I got up around 11:30 p.m. to refill my water bottle, trying to shake the residual tension from the day. The main living room lights were off, leaving only the soft, ambient glow of the kitchen under-cabinet lights. I walked toward the sink, and that's when I saw it. I glanced casually out the glass door, and my heart didn't just drop. It momentarily seized, causing a physical, painful jolt in my chest that left me completely breathless. There was a silhouette near the back corner of the yard, taller than David, too still to be an animal. My security lights, which I always rely on to flood the yard with motion, were inexplicably off. I later realized the motion sensor had been deliberately taped over with a small square of black electrical tape. Terror, primal and cold, seized me. I crept closer to the glass, straining my eyes in the pale moonlight filtering through the dense trees. The figure moved, stepping out from the deepest shadow of the old oak tree. He was thinner than I remembered, his face lined with genuine hardship, a decade of bad decisions etched around his eyes and mouth. But the sharp shape of his jaw, the arrogant way he still carried his shoulders, it was him. It was Jason. The ghost had materialized on my lawn, less than 20 feet from my son's bedroom window. He had managed to climb my 6-foot protective fence, the barrier I had built with my own hands. My fortress had been breached. I backed up, silently scrambling for my phone, my fingers shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone onto the tile floor, but my survival instinct locked in. I ran to the hallway, where the glass door locks are located. As I fumbled with the final deadbolt, Jason noticed the movement inside. He walked slowly, deliberately, toward the door, crossing the carefully mowed expanse of my beautiful, safe backyard. He stopped right at the glass, placing his hand flat against the pane. A grotesque physical barrier separating my hard-won reality from his desperate return. His hand looked dirtier, rougher than I remembered, the hand of someone who hadn't washed properly or worked an office job in years. I locked the last bolt, then ran back to the kitchen, dialing 911. My voice was a terrified, thin rasp, but the adrenaline forced the words out. Someone broke into my backyard. My ex-husband. He abandoned us 9 years ago. He is standing at my door. I am alone with my child. Jason started speaking through the glass, his voice muffled but audible, thick with an almost theatrical desperation, trying to sound wounded and fragile. Clara, please. Just open the door. I know I messed up. I know it was awful, but I changed. I had to hit rock bottom. I lost everything, but it made me see what I lost. I've been driving all day. He attempted a pitiful smile that didn't reach his eyes. I just need 5 minutes, Clara. Please. I pressed the phone to my ear, waiting for the siren, my eyes locked on his face, studying it like a crime scene photo, dissecting his every manipulative move. You didn't mess up, Jason, I said, my voice rising slightly, cutting through the glass with years of stored-up resentment. You committed a moral crime and disappeared. You forfeited all rights to this life 9 years ago. You are trespassing. The police are coming. Get off my property. Now. Don't take another step. He ignored the threat, pressing his forehead against the cool glass, trying to look pathetic and beaten. I was lost, Clara. I was depressed. I saw a picture of you online of the house. It looks amazing. I missed you. I missed my life. But mostly, I came back for my son. I saw Owen's swing set. He's big. He's 9, right? I want to meet him. That's my son, Clara. You can't keep me away from my flesh and blood. He was pushing the ultimate button, trying to invoke the fundamental truth of biology, using my child as bait. I need to be his father. Let me tell my side of the story. You lost the right to that title the minute you chose a text message over a newborn. I spat, my voice regaining its steel, fueled by years of silent, grinding labor. You didn't break into my yard because you missed Owen, Jason. You broke in because you ran out of money and realized I built something stable that you could leech onto. I see the poverty in your clothes, and I see the greedy, desperate calculation in your eyes. This is not remorse. It's an attempted robbery of my stability. You are not owed a single word or minute. The sirens, still distant but unmistakably approaching, were the sweetest sound I had ever heard. Jason heard them too. His face, which had been set in manipulative remorse, instantly crumpled and tightened into pure, panicked flight. The mask was gone. He took one last, desperate, defeated look at the door, at the symbol of the life he threw away, and spun around, sprinting back toward the fence he had so easily breached. The police arrived just as he was scrambling over the top rail, headlights flashing across my beautiful, terrorized lawn. Officer Davis and Officer Chin caught him immediately on the other side of the fence. The confrontation and subsequent paperwork took over an exhausting hour, but it was the most validating, cleansing hour of my life. I showed the officers the finalized divorce papers, the birth certificate with Jason listed but never signed, and explained the 9 years of absolute silence and total lack of financial support. They confirmed that Jason would be arrested, booked, and charged with criminal trespass and potentially loitering. The officers later did a detailed background check, confirming every last one of my darkest suspicions. Jason hadn't embarked on some noble, self-improving journey. He had been living rough, bouncing between cities, with a clear record of instability, a few arrests for minor fraud, panhandling, and multiple outstanding warrants for unpaid fines and debts. He didn't come back a reformed man seeking forgiveness. He came back a desperate predator hoping to exploit my hard-won success. The next morning, I woke up Owen, shielded him from the yellow police tape still clinging to the fence, and told him the police had been chasing a large, loud squirrel that was damaging the swing set. I was already on the phone with my lawyer. I requested the maximum distance restraining order possible, making it legally impossible for Jason to come within a mile of my home, my workplace, or Owen's school. More importantly, I began the rigorous process of petitioning the court for full, permanent termination of his parental rights, citing the 9 years of complete abandonment and the recent act of criminal intrusion as definitive proof of his unfitness and danger to our family's safety and emotional well-being. David flew home early, taking an overnight flight the moment he got my panic text. He was absolutely furious, but his support was measured, rock solid, and immediate. He didn't ask me to reconsider or to be the bigger person. He simply reinforced the security, replaced the taped-up motion sensor with a state-of-the-art surveillance camera, and sat silently beside me in every consultation with my lawyer. That afternoon, he took Owen fishing, showing him how to cast the line silently, powerfully cementing his role as the true, stable, protective father figure in our son's life. Jason's unexpected and invasive return was intended to shatter the safety I built, but it only strengthened my resolve. My backyard, my house, my life, it is all mine, built by my own hands and determination. The physical fence is back up, higher and stronger now, a permanent fortification, but the emotional boundary I drew 9 years ago, when I read that cold text message, remains the most important act of self-preservation I have ever committed. Jason learned, the hard way, that you don't get to abandon your family and then break into their happiness years later to claim a reward. There is no easy way back.